What's up, guys? Infinity back here with another awesome video, ladies and gentlemen. And today, we'll be talking about Resident Evil 4 here. Now, I just want to say something real quick that this is kind of like a review / response to Crowbat's recent video on the Resident Evil 4 remake. I haven't played the remake, but I've played the OG like I think about 4 times. And I love Resident Evil 4, but that doesn't mean it. Though while Crowbat called Resident Evil 4 remake a product of its time, this game is also in a way a product of its time. Don't get me wrong, it's timeless, but it has several things that are products of its time. And I'm just going to go over how I feel about the game this episode. Now, starting off with the gameplay. The gameplay is really fun overall. And I feel the enemies, they're pretty scary they're pretty good to fight, you know. And overall, there's a lot of sorry, I kind of got focused in the game. So, in terms of the shooting, it's pretty good, you know. Not always a fan of, like the stop and plain sight while you're aiming. But it's not terrible. Game tank control is pretty good, to be honest. Yeah, maybe playing this game while I'm talking about it is not the best. But yeah, overall, everything that this game does, overall, I like how Leon feels. He feels very smooth to control, and honestly, a lot of the gunplay feels pretty good. The sound effects are really have a nice kick to them. They're nice. They feel nice and weighty. Laser sight's pretty cool. So, but the camera is not my favorite thing. And the fact it doesn't really, the camera. Oh, there goes the chainsaw guy. Sorry, I keep stopping and talking, but I'm just really invested in the game right now. I'll stop once. I'll stop. Oh, get wrecked. Sorry guys, I just can't stop talking. Yeah, sorry, it's kind of hard for me to. Yeah, this. I continuously get too invested in this game. Can't talk. Anyway, I thought the gunplay is smooth. The camera isn't the best. It doesn't always. It's a little hard to see some enemies sometimes. That kind of sucks, but it's manageable. But I'm not exactly sure why. Though I'm not exactly sure why the people in Crowbat's video think why the camera should be something that creates tension. Like, I don't understand how in the video, the people that Crowbat uses to talk about his opinion says that basically said that sorry guys, I sometimes get too invested. And what I'm trying to say here is that I feel like the tension should come from more some. Overall, the enemies are really, really good. Overall, their generators are freaking terrifying. Granados are really interesting and are something the Resident Evil games have never seen before. But by the time, anyway, and overall, for all the dialogue I spew out, it can be it's kind of creepy at times. Just fighting off like those freaking Garnados and the soldiers and the generators. They're all pretty well crafted enemies for the most part. The boss battles don't really disappoint. The lake boss battle, the giant fish, the El Giganto fights, El Menendez's fight, Ruin Salazar, Jack Krauser, and Lord Sadler, and the E3 boss fight are all pretty good boss fights. Now, Crowbat said something I don't exactly agree with, that because like it was like one guy in the El Menendez boss fight saying and the camera angles create the way the scene had tension was that the camera didn't exactly allow to keep track on the monster. So essentially, the reason for it being having tension isn't because of like the enemy design, the monster itself, its attacks, its aggression, how fast it is. It's the camera and aiming controls. I'm sorry, but I really don't think tension should come from controls. Like, that's stupid. Not to mention, like the old Silent Hill games, like had you can move and shoot in those games. And like Silent Hill 1, you can move and shoot. Isn't that scary because you can move and shoot? And I hear people say that, oh, you have to bring it back. You have to have the aiming from the old game, because it's identity. The control scheme is its identity, and this brings up a pretty interesting discussion, to be honest. And it's that should because if a game mechanic is good and it's like original game, you would want to bring it back for your remake and improve upon it. But the argument isn't good in the long run, because what if that a specific spot of that specific control of the old game was bad? I'm not saying the one in Resident Evil 4 is bad, but if the argument is, oh, we gotta have the control stuff in the RE4 remake because it was in the RE4 OG, I'm sorry, but would you take GoldenEye 64? It had bad aiming system. Would you want that back in a remake of game or remaster just for its identity's sake? Or would you want it to be re-envisioned so it's good? The identity argument kind of goes out the window, because at the end of the day, if a game mechanic is bad, it's bad. It's not really part of its identity. If the camera and the aiming systems are clunky, then that's not really its identity. It's just a certain control. Anyway, I said what now. So far, the mission. So far, the enemies and the shooting is really good. I like the combat. Just I felt the camera was pretty. I didn't like the camera that much. Now we're getting to the puzzles, which are solid. None of them really took that long to figure out. So there was a few brain teasers, but nothing really that difficult. However, now we're moving on to Ashley. And yeah, she's meh. I mean, her AI isn't awful. She does respond. You can have her. Overall, she does like behave, and like when tell her to stay close or like just stay there, she will do it. She'll hide. But overall, she's just kind of annoying. Not because she's just hard to protect, but because her personality is just so annoying. She's kind of a brat, to be honest. I didn't really like her that much. And while her AI is decent, it definitely had its rough moments in the campaign for me. For example, during like that 2 route scene where I was in the El Gigante section, Ashley just like stopped and like pointed her finger at a boulder and just standed there when El Gigante was just strolling up to her. And because of that, she died, which was infuriating. I didn't mention when she does duck when I try to shoot over her, she doesn't try to reposition herself, which is leaving herself in a worse spot. It's kind of bad. over and there are certain times where her AI just moves in my playthrough that she just moves across enemies with ease, but then other times she just kind of crawls down, like crawls on the ball for some reason. Certain times she just brush past enemies and when they're close to her, and other times when they're close to her, she just curls on the ball. I don't know what's different about what situation is going on. And heard this guy saying you had way less control over her in the remake than the OG. You literally have little control over her in the OG. All you command her to do is stay put, follow you, and hide. That's the only control she can. That is. It doesn't mean you have less control over her. Well, you have very little control over her in this game. Now, again, I have not played the remake, so I wouldn't necessarily know how much control you have over her, but you have very little control over her Ashley in this game. Now we're on to the artist, and heard like arguments that, oh, no, it's mostly your fault for not. Same guy saying like she stuck to you like a magnet, so it's most of the time your fault for not positioning her right. But certain parts of the level design don't really allow you to position her correctly in time. Like in the El Gigante part in the two roots section, El Gigante is constantly on your tail, and you don't really have much time to reposition Ashley. Again, same thing with the water hallway in like Chapter 3-1, like the water hall. There's enemies coming from all angles, and because of that, you can't always find good time to position Ashley correctly because there's enemies coming for you from all directions. There's a lot. You have to not only worry about your own safety, but Ashley does too, and position her correctly while finding out enemies, and and sometimes it can lead to cheap deaths. And yeah, Ashley's decent in this game, but she is no way near the best AI companion, like some people in his video said. She does listen to your commands, but at the same time, her AI isn't perfect. Now we're talking about the graphics. Overall, the graphics had a nice aesthetic. They're not the most high quality graphics, but they do have a nice. But they do have a lot of artisticness to them, like the splash screens when you read the notes, or like the menu like designs. The UI designs. They're pretty creative. I will agree with Crow on this, and that the UI is more creative than in the remake. Overall, the remake has really good aesthetics, and there's several well-designed parts. But I want to talk about something in Crowbat's video. That's this. It's again about the camera. Truth is, he considers the clunky camera in the RE4 OG to be a good thing because it creates tension. But yet goes on to criticize Leon's clunky movement in the remake. If the OG has a clunky camera, why is it so weird? Why is it? And you didn't have a problem with it. Why is this now a problem that the remake has Leon is somewhat clunky? Also, the bullet's not always going where you shoot. If the camera in RE4 OG doesn't allow you to see enemies, doesn't allow you to see if the RE4 OG camera doesn't allow you to see enemies, that can't allow you to see enemies all the time to create tension, why shouldn't why in the remake if the RE4 camera being clunky creates is good for creating tension. Why are you missing some of your shots? Creating tension. Why is some of your shots not hitting? That create tension a bad thing? I mean, in a way, they're both kind of clunky systems that create tension. So what's the issue here? Now, the certain sections like the village and the castle and island, the village is pretty good. It has a pretty good aesthetic. It has some balance of action and horror. Same with the castle, it's beautifully designed, and that statue like part was cool, but and again had a balance of horror and action. But Island, it's kind of a letdown because now it's just pure action. Besides the regenerators, there's little to no horror. It's kind of a bummer to have that as the last part of RE4OG because there's no horror, or basically no horror. Now we're moving on to the story. Again, crowbat, I mentioned this. Listen, a clunky camera does not. Tension should not come from a clunky camera, okay? In Dead Space, for example, Dead Space. Okay, I played the Dead Space remake. You can move and shoot in that game while reload, you know? But if we're talking about the game the game I play that I most fear in combat, it would easily be Dead Space than over RE4. Why? Because the enemies are more aggressive. A lot of them are much scary. Are a lot scarier in design. They're faster. They're more brutal. There's several different kinds of enemies coming at you all at once. Overall, they're just more aggressive. They're more frightening in general because the combat in Dead Space is more frightening and has more tension because the enemies create that. That's how it should be, not from a camera. And if a clunky camera is bad for you, then why is good for the RE4OG? Then why is Leon's clunky movement in the remake a bad thing? And if we're talking about ways to create tension, to replace the clunky camera in RE4, the bullet's not always hitting your shots. Guns not always shooting your shots is a good way to create tension. Now moving on to the story, which, yeah, it's a lot of it. Some of it's kind of undercooked. Like Leon's easily the best part. He has an okay arc of like confronting his past, and overall being able to save someone, like unlike in the past where he couldn't, that being Ashley. Overall, Leon is incredibly fun to listen to. Has a lot of good one-liners in the story. Though that can sometimes ruin the tension, sometimes ruin the horror and tension of the moment. Sometimes Leon's one-liners can sometimes do that in the story, and even sometimes in. Now, I forgot to mention this, that you can actually, and it can be a problem sometimes. And the story, but while I feel the story is overall undercooked, the storytelling is actually is pretty good actually. The fact you can check a lot of things, you can check like things in the environment, that's cool. Well, Leon will check things and text will pop up saying what he thinks. That's cool. Though some of the text sometimes decrease, like, takes away from the horror of the moment. Like, I found this in the beginning of the game while the tension's rising. You find this woman who's like who's stuck to the wall with a pitchfork in her head, and Leon will say that, oh, I guess. And Leon says something along the lines of, I guess sexual discrimination isn't really a thing here, like a one liner, and that kind of took away some of that horror and tension. Now I get it. This this game isn't really trying to be that isn't is kind of like a B movie in a way, but it does take away some of the line layers do take away from the horror. I'll admit, it isn't a math problem. It's just something I want to point out. It can be sometimes just as effective as what he said in his video of saying one-liners in the in gameplay can take away from horror. It can be the same thing in like the cutscenes sometimes in this game. But overall, a lot of the character arcs in this game are characters in this game are kind of undercooked. Ada is pretty solid, She gets her own like story in separate ways, so and it's basically her like completing a mission at all odds, but she does do about her taking and basic. Okay, she has a decent arc of like not blindly following orders as she was so determined to get the the serum that Lewis had, or was it? Yeah. But she wouldn't cross the line by killing Leon. In her crossing of lines, she has a decent arc, but all of them are undercooked because of different reasons. Example: Lewis' character arc is wrapped up so quickly, and if we give you like some leeway, Lewis Sarah was a researcher for Sadler, who driven by research, accidentally allowed Sadler to use the plagas on the village. And now he's seeking redemption. However, it's wrapped up so quickly that we didn't really get to marinate his character that much. Now, all the voice actors do superb jobs. Leon, Ada, and Louise' voice actor is really good. But the problem is that we don't see him enough for his character arc to marinate and mean something in the long run. His first scene, we see him tied up, and that's when El Menendez shows up and just beats the crap out of Leon. Second scene, we see Luis and Leon about to be executed, and Luis talks about how he quit being a police officer because you put your life on the line, but no one exactly puts your life on the line, but you don't really get that much appreciation. That's what I came across as. I might need to actually rewatch the scene. Hang on, I'll be back. All right, yeah, I watched the scene and I was correct, right? And then after he was almost gets executed, he runs away. Doesn't come back until like now. This is in chapter 1-2. He doesn't come back until chapter 2-2, in which basically helps Leon defend Ashley from the Granada wave, like, and he realizes that they may be affected with Las Plagas. And he's then seen in chapter 3-1, where he says he's got like a serum. But he drops it, and he says that doing this makes him feel better for all the things he's done. And in this fifth and final scene, he literally gets killed by Sadler, who takes the serum away from Louise. And he tells Leon that he was a researcher for Sadler. And he did this because in a smaller dimension, trying to redeem himself. Overall, it's a good character. It would be a good character arc if we spent more time with Louise. His character arc is wrapped up so quickly that we didn't get to Marinan's character that much. In fact, a lot of the characters are very under. In fact, another plotline that just finds a solution. Now, there's also the plotline. Now, there's plot lines that go on for long, but then a solution just pops out of nowhere. That being Leon and Ashley being infected with the Las Plagas. It's a key point throughout most of the game that they're infected with Las Plagas, and they're looking for a cure on how to cure themselves. But throughout most of the game, they're kind of protecting Ashley and trying to find a cure. That none of them actually make any progress in finding said cure, and then the story just kind of just gives it to them through a letter saying, "Oh, this machine will cure you," and then not even 5 minutes later they get to the machine and cure themselves. This plotting is undercooked because most of the game we're thinking of how they progress to making it get out of their body, and the solution is just handed to them. Then near the end of the game, because we need to wrap that plotline up quickly now. In general, a lot of characters are undercooked, such for villains like El Menendez and Jack Krauser. El Menendez is a character that has so little screen time that he's not very interesting. He shows up in 4 scenes max. One where he just shows he's a big, intimidating threat. 2 where he sees Sadler injecting Leon with the Las Plagas. 2 where he says that Leon now has lost. 1 in chapter 1-2 where he says Leon has lost Plagas, and then he's gone until chapter 2-3 where he just shows up and just tries to kill Leon. He's this big brute, and he's not very interesting, and he has so little screen time. And Jack Krauser is the same thing. He has so little screen time. He quite literally gets introduced in chapter 4-1, but isn't seen until chapter 5. Chapter 5-2, then isn't shown again until 5-2, where he's shown where in both of those scenes he has a connection to Leon, which makes you think, he's gonna be a pretty important part for the rest of the story when he gets introduced in chapter 4-1. But no, he's barely in the game. He has a couple small scenes in small scenes in chapter 4-1, 5-1, I think. But then he's only really important for chapter 5-3, where it's revealed he took Ashley to the island and him and Leon have this connection, which is very non-existent, to be honest. He just says that has a connection to Leon, and like they know each other, but there's but we barely get any time marinating on the fact that he has a connection to Leon, and just kind of acts as like this other threat we need to take down. He is so underdeveloped that it felt like the story just needs something else for Leon to fight. And just brings use for a mystery of, oh, this is who kidnapped Ashley. It's just kind of there for just. He isn't very interesting. And Sadler overall, despite being the main villain, doesn't have that much impact for a majority of this. It doesn't have that. Isn't very present for most of the story. In chapter, he's only really relevant. He's mostly relevant only for chapter 5. Throughout the whole of chapter 5, he is. There's definitely snippets of who he is mentioned by other villains, but we barely see him. In chapter now, granted, he does do a lot in the small scenes. He ejects Leon with Lost Pockets and kills Lewis, but in somewhat of an underwhelming death scene. But other times he just, but he isn't very relevant until chapter 5. Really, throughout the entire chapter 5, it would be cool to see him more. And true, that's in a way, Ramon Salazar steals the show from Sadler because he is way more present in the story. He's the main force for all the cast, for the entire cast section, and he's just so entertaining. His interaction with Leon on the radio are so good. And I feel like he has more screen time than Sadler in this game. That's kind of the issue. Well, a lot of these people don't get much screen time, or very little present, and Ashley doesn't even get a real character arc. There's not even a shred of it. And overall, the story structure of like, oh, we saved Ashley, she got kidnapped again. We saved Ashley, she got kidnapped again. We saved Ashley, she got kidnapped again. Got kind of old. Because like we saved her in chapter 3-4, and then she gets kidnapped 4-1. Wow. And now overall the story is kind of meh. It's kind of sloppy, but the one-liners from Leon kind of carry it. So the fun interactions with he has and the villains kind of do carry the story. So it's not as bad. It's not enough to ruin the game, but it's definitely a knock of the game. Now, in terms of glitches, I definitely had some glitches. Some enemies just kind of like jump in place sometimes, and it is a separate ways campaign. And the screen turned staticky. Those were really the main notable bugs I had, but yeah. Overall, to me, Resident Evil 4 OG is still an S tier game. But at the same time, I don't think Crowbat. We agree with Crowbat that the original beats out the remake in every way. I think this game is excellent, but I'm not ashamed that I haven't played the remake yet, but I'm very excited to. And I can't really comment based on things in the remake because I haven't exactly played it yet. Though I will say, it is true that in Crowbat's video, the UI looks kind of boring. The yellow paint's like not very good. And yeah, those are fine criticisms, but I think some of his criticisms are like a little nitpicky or cherry picked to some extent, like other negative things he has to say about the game. The fact you can't shoot through doors is kind of stupid. I'll admit that. Overall, I'm excited to play the remake. RE4 OG is timeless, but is in a way a product of its time. And here's the thing, Crowbat. Resident Evil did shortcuts before Last of Us. All it added was the HUD. it's an improvement over the RE shortcuts, so that's why they used it. It was a good like improvement on what they already did. So in a way, they were using stuff from the Resident Evil franchise that that inspired the Resident Evil shortcut, the last of us shortcuts, to use that in the RE4 remake shortcuts. Because so in a way, it's actually still inspired by Resident Evil. So yeah, so whatever. Anyways, guys, thank you guys so much for watching. And subscribe, comment, like, hit the notification bell so you know if I have future videos. Without further ado, bye bye.